Oh, we're live. I beat you to it today. Welcome to another episode of Go FUD Yourself.
Holy hell.
I'm Ceara. This is my good friend, JD.
What's up?
Bad impression of you.
Yeah, your voice was a little high, but no big deal.
It's FU Friday, which is not my favorite day. Crypto Arms Race is my favorite day, but I think it is JD's favorite day.
Oh, I love saying FU. It's my
Although
fave.
Hump Day is pretty like high on your list.
Hump Day, we had a creative name for Tuesday too, but it's not PC, so we'll leave it. Anyways, we got a whole bunch of crap to talk about today.
Okay, well, we have to talk about the hot crypto Twitter news. What's the hot crypto Twitter news?
Well, narrative positioning between the SEC and the rest of crypto, I think, and, with respect to
XRP.
Ripple. Man, brain is not firing on all cylinders.
We're going to trade today. I'm going to be loud and annoying, and you can think about what you're going to say.
Wait,
first.
Are you implying that I'm usually loud and annoying?
Well, I don't usually imply anything.
All right, so quick shout out to our friends at Opolis for the merch today. I wear this shirt a lot because I really like it.
Shirt.
Yeah, and it's got like the all-seeing eye on the back. Oh no, it doesn't. But this looks like the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, on the front.
Anyways, really cool. Big shout out to them. We're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern.
Can you tell?
All over the freaking place. Yeah, if you can't tell, now you know. Like, share, subscribe. Help us get the word out. Okay, so what are we talking about?
Okay, well, we are going to talk about XRP. We are going to talk about Ripple. And then we have all of this like drama news. I feel like I'm in the National Enquirer of crypto when I look at news these days. It's like FTX, SBF versus Mashinsky. Jesse Powell's having a bad day. CZ in the news again. Elon Musk, is this insider trading? And like, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how negative sentiment is impacting the adoption. We're going to talk about how to use your critical thinking hat or your tin hat, whichever one you feel like donning. But I felt like I was in the grocery store checkout flipping through the National Enquirer. Or do you remember the Weekly World News?
I've never been a tabloid guy, but I think that FU Friday kind of is like the tabloids. It's kind of like an opinion. It's like an opinion. You know.
No, so the Weekly World News was about aliens and Sasquatches and Hitler like living in Arkansas. And nice. it used to be when I was like a teenager, it used to be in all of the like convenience stores and whatever newsstands as though it were real news. And that's what I feel like we're doing now is we're going to talk about SBF. We're going to talk about Jesse Powell. We're going to talk about Mashinsky. We're going to talk about Musk. And we're probably also going to talk about what the Sasquatch's best trading plan is.
All right, let's do it. All right, we're back. We're going to have to figure out now that we're doing Twitter Spaces at the very beginning, we're going to have to figure out how to get that beautiful song to play into Twitter.
We're going to work on it. Yesterday we went live on Twitter and then there were like 4 people that came on and didn't hang out because we weren't talking yet.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so
they thought it was a dead space. That's okay. They're lost. They didn't learn about Ripple in time to profit off it. Anyways, okay, where do you want to start? Let's start with FTX.
You know what? Let's start with Ripple. Let's just go for it because that's hot right now. And, you know, it was only in the last hour that we started seeing news about how the SEC is going to try to keep Ripple as a security despite the trial outcome. So what do you think about that? What are you kind of seeing on crypto Twitter? What do people think?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because it's like, I'm trying to find the article here, but anyways, it's interesting because there's really 2 very polarizing opinions on how this all kind of came down. But I think it's worth saying there's a caveat to all of this. This was a district court ruling, and there's a lot of paths to appeal and other such circumstances. So I don't actually think this is done. So although it's exciting and it's a momentary win, it does make it a more uphill battle, I think, for Ripple. But the way the court systems work, I mean, a lot of things are overturned on appeal. So we'll have to, like, it's worth saying that just because I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is it. It's over. SEC's done. There's no more SEC regulation of crypto. Not really. There's a couple of things. So the SEC is trying to spin this. And I was trying to find the article quickly and I can't, but I was going to read it. The SEC is trying to spin this that it's a win. Their press release yesterday more or less said, we were validated in our opinion that selling XRP to institutions or enterprise via contract was an investment contract. And in that example, it was selling an unregistered security. So there is a small piece of win for the SEC, but it's actually really not that big of a deal. The SEC is just taking that as a blanket win. They've kind of ignored everything else that was said in the motion or in the decision.
So just for like a little bit of context clarity, basically what was ruled is that the token was an investment contract if Ripple sold it to institutional investors, but not when sold to retail investors, because the contract was slightly different, the advertising was different, the promotion was different, and then kind of the outcome, of course, is also different. And so that's what the SEC is saying that they've won is, yes, look, it was a security in this institutional way, but then all of the news that you're seeing from the crypto side is XRP is not a security for retail. And so I can see that getting really convoluted and kind of confusing. And the other concept here is that, the Howey test, which we talk about all the time, is that when you look at the plain text, XRP is not a security. But when you look at the intention of the text, it is a security, hence retail versus institutional.
Yeah. So there's people are drawing a lot of conclusions from this that I think are maybe a little bit premature. Like, oh, anything sold on a DEX is not a security anymore.
Right.
I wouldn't quite be so confident. I don't think that everything is completely out of the water. What I do think is this is going to cause a little bit of pullback from the regulators to just say, okay, let's take a breath here. We need to focus on policy. Because what will happen, I think, is that we're going to see legislation that suggests that crypto, in fact, is a security or some version of requiring registration somewhere. So don't think that this is completely, we're out of the woods, that we never have to think about regulation again. It's in fact quite the opposite. If anything, it might force the hand of policymakers a little bit, which I don't mind. I mean, let's put this behind us. But
on the bright side, Ripple is able to stop being in a lawsuit they've been in since 2020. Maybe they'll have time and money for other innovations now. Yeah,
I mean, they're up to roughly 80 billion FDV.
That's wild.
75 billion right now, actually, which is kind of insane. But I mean, they've been doing a lot of things. So you got to give Ripple credit. Like, in the midst of all of this incredibly expensive and time-consuming legal battle, they're still expanding globally. They're really working on, trying to be the go-to for CBDC infrastructure, et cetera. They're investing a lot in post-secondary education institutions, and they're doing a lot for lobby and influence and so on. And so you got to give them credit. I mean, they kept their foot on the gas. A simple thing to do would be, pare down as much of your staff as you wanted to as you could during the lawsuit, and then just try to weather the storm. They did the opposite. They said, no, forget this. We're going to win, and we're going to keep doing everything to try to grow. And it looks like it's worked out. 80 billion FDV. Absolutely. They're the fifth largest project in the space. You got to give them credit. So
to be fair, that international diversification is also smart if they had lost, because then they would have somewhere else to operate.
Sure. So, but I wouldn't get too excited saying that they're going to have a bunch of extra time, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be an opinion pretty quickly on this one. So we'll see.
That's probably true. Okay, let's go the opposite direction. Let's talk about tabloids.
Yay.
Yeah. Do you love tabloids? Are you so excited for the drama, the Friday?
Well, yeah, okay. I don't love tabloids, but we can be one. And then
Me either, but here we go. Well, I'm hoping that we can kind of shed some light on these. Okay, so the first big one that you're probably seeing is that FTX spent a couple $1 million having a European operating license, and then they spent a few $1 million to continue operating that operating license, essentially. And the caretaker estate, so kind of like the interim CEO, says that he wants the money back. The investment did not pay off, and they want to recover the funds because...
Yeah, so there is a way to do this. In U.S. bankruptcy, you have you can claw back anything in the previous 90 days. There's a bunch of rules around it. obviously. But this is probably one of those things that FTX acquired a firm that had licenses. They didn't pay 350 million just to get a license. They bought a firm also.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is the unfortunate reality of these bankruptcies. And you could be acquired. You could have got 350 million for your business, thinking, okay, we're doing okay, and then, you know, lo and behold, the money's clawed back because that company went into bankruptcy. So here we are. It really sucks. Who knows
It's
if
not
they
90 days. It's been a long time.
yeah, but they have a long time, I think, to do that. It's just 90 days before the date of the filing for bankruptcy. I think I'm not an attorney, so
I know.
this is not legal advice. Neither was my comments on Ripple, of course. That's anecdotal from our legal
from
advisors, but yeah.
The other thing that's interesting here is people are upset about it a little bit on crypto Twitter because they think that the personal expenditures of the European arm of FTX were over the top. So that included like luxury car rentals and wining and dining and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, where are you going to get the money from? Right? Like they've got to get the 350 million from something, and chances are that's been dispersed to investors, to shareholders. Like, yes, there's some legal recourse. There's some stuff they can do, obviously,
right,
to get back. But I don't know. We'll have to see how it all plays out.
So this one is like, I don't know, it's kind of honestly a little bit more of a setup for the next one, which is that people are mad about SBF still not being charged. They believe that we're going to talk about the next one soon, that some of the other people who are being charged, like the Mashinsky and the CZ and the Jesse Towell, that there's a misalignment of trial resources, if you will. So the idea here is that people are still mad at SBF and he's still in the news and people don't like it.
Yeah, people don't like it because, as you could imagine, he's fighting the charges against him, which is what anybody would do. He's got attorneys, and his parents obviously are deeply involved in universities. So they probably have a lot of resources. It's a very high profile case. There's probably some high flying attorneys that are trying to make their name, you know, by doing some creative stuff here. So, I mean, you can't blame the guy for trying to defend himself, although I think he's unavoidably guilty and you know, should have to deal with the consequences of losing and jeopardizing all of those assets and client trust. But all of that to say, I mean, can't fault the guy. Everybody has a right to a defense. And so they should be doing that. It's annoying, but this is going to be going on for years. Like the SBF thing, like this will be in court forever. So, I mean, it's going to be a whole ton of these motions to dismiss, and there's all this lawyering that's happening. And I think we get a little too caught up in the fireworks of it all because we have nothing better to pay attention to at the moment.
Absolutely.
But anyways,
and then I didn't throw this on here because it's not like really news in my opinion, but some people are following some news about how SBF has requested to be able to see close friends and family. So I guess he's in like some sort of isolation chamber. I wasn't keeping up on what he's doing with his life, but
he's on house arrest in his parents' house. But I think what he's looking for is the ability to leave his parents' house.
No, he's asking for visitation, like that people are allowed to come see him, because for a while he wasn't allowed to see anybody who was involved in the business because, you know, instead of trading and setting, and maybe he only is friends with people from business. I know what that's like. Maybe you do too.
The only people you know?
But it's kind of interesting that people are still so upset about SBF and they're kind of laying in wait, right? And then we have this other news come up about FTX. And I don't know, SBF is just this household name now?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not a folk hero. He's a folk villain, I guess. I don't know. Someone that everybody likes to hate. I mean, this whole like selective enforcement and going after the big guys. I mean, if you're a big guy, you feel like you're targeted by being a big guy. The argument is anybody else that they slapped with these lawsuits would just go bankrupt. So the narrative would be very negative. Like they're trying to enforce against big enough companies that there's a means to actually fight it. I don't think that's strategic. I don't think they're avoiding the small guys because they're going to, you know, force them into bankruptcy. I just think, you know, they have to determine where they want to spend resources enforcing this stuff. And these larger companies have way more clients, way more assets that are, being exposed to whatever allegations that they have. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, the larger you get, the more people are out to get you. And so I think, of course, the big companies are going to complain because it's costing them lots of money, and they're trying to find a reason to weasel out of this.
Well, at least they still can complain because they haven't gone totally bankrupt. Unlike Celsius. So Alex Wyszynski's facing charges as well. This was in the news today that he's officially been arrested by the SEC. And this is where some of that questionable enforcement comes in. But I don't know, Celsius, they went bankrupt. He's been charged with commodities fraud and securities fraud and wire fraud and market manipulation, I think. And
conspiracy to manipulate the price, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember where he was arrested. I think New York or something. I can't remember where it said. But anyways.
New York. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this again is kind of like, so we've talked about this quite a bit about like the severance of liability. And so when you're incorporated, especially in the US, but when you're incorporated, there's like kind of a separation of liability between you and the company, except for negligence, right? Except for like obvious negligence. And so what they're claiming here is that not only was Celsius acting improperly and should be penalized, but Alex Wyszynski, and I would assume maybe his wife, because she was pretty deeply involved and tied up in where all the money was going and all this stuff. But I mean, they're being called out personally and charged personally for this, which means there's, as you could imagine, there's probably enough evidence to show personal negligence, which is similar to what happened with Terra Luna, which is similar to what happened with Binance and the way that they've charged CZ directly. Yeah. I mean, that's where this is coming from. It's not that simple to make those connections to the individual founders. You have to be able to prove some version of negligence or malicious intent, which seems like they probably think they can. I mean, I hate it when the SEC enforces things that I think are frivolous. Stuff like this, SBF, Alex Wyszynski, like, F you, honestly. Those are two people that we can say F you to. I mean, it's one thing for Coinbase to be trying to figure this out and get in a lawsuit. It's another thing for, Celsius to lose billions of dollars of investors' capital. Anyways, hopefully Fahrenheit fixes that. I think Arrington and crew have a pretty interesting approach and trying to make the debtors whole for Celsius, and they've creatively called it Fahrenheit, which I think is hilarious.
Hilarious. You did mention CZ also, and I don't know. I love saying F you to CZ because he doesn't care. He'll just give you the finger back. But, he's been in the news a little bit recently, calling basically all of the news about him FUD, which he's been doing for months. But essentially, their chief strategy officer and a few others, I believe, left. And it's kind of like amidst investigation that they left. And I actually saw it on crypto Twitter earlier this week. I believe that it was the CSO, Patrick Hillman, but I could be wrong. But one of them was on Twitter saying like, oh, this is for personal reasons. My wife misses me and I have to contribute more to our household. And people were really like hating on him for that. But in reality, they think that they're just covering up that he's, leaving so that he doesn't get charged with stuff.
I think it's like typical, right? When the ship starts sinking, the rats run away from the flood. I don't mean to call any of these individuals rats. No. I don't know anything about them. But the same thing happened with Alameda. There was a few people internally that saw the writing on the wall, Alameda FTX. Oh, excuse me. There was like the CEO of FTX. I think there was one of the co-CEOs of Alameda that left. There was a whole bunch of operations people. I mean, it doesn't necessarily sever them from any liability for what happened previously, but what it does do is sever them from liability of any cover-up and other nonsense later on, which is
also genuinely, again, it's probably really stressful.
Of course, like
not everyone wants to do that. Like,
it would be a lot of nonsense, and you're essentially like with a gun pointed to your head, digging a grave that you might find yourself in, right?
Exactly.
By responding to all of this stuff and dealing with it, you're kind of like you've got the shovel, you're digging the hole, and you just hope you don't have to.
Not everyone wants to do that, and I think that's okay. Let them go quietly into the night until they get charged with something.
I mean, but it does to me say that, where there's smoke, there's fire, obviously.
Absolutely.
And so I think what that implies, at least to me, and this is just my opinion, of course, what that implies to me is that some of those people are like, there is some weird stuff going on here still, and I don't want to be a part of it any longer.
Yeah,
and
whatever it is.
And then they try to PR spin it like, oh, my family, or oh, health reasons, or whatever. Like, it's all PR nonsense, but you can't blame the guys, I guess. Like, I would probably do the same thing if I wasn't one of the core proprietors, and
absolutely,
finding myself in hot water. I'd be like, okay, well, let's cut our losses.
Exit
here.
strategy. Yeah. Gotta be smart.
And figure it out. But
who could use a better PR agent is Jesse Powell. I know that Christine and Ben spoke about this on Monday, so we're not going to get super far into it, but it makes a point to me about the tabloidiness of things right now. So basically, Jesse Powell probably hacked into personal data for a nonprofit that he also owns, and the FBI raided his home to see if they could find that, like, proof of the data, which there's got to be something more to that. That seems like a really extreme response to having stolen personal data, but what do I know?
I mean, I'm gonna expose my bias here, but I think that the FBI is no longer an unbiased entity in the United States. I don't.
Were they ever an unbiased entity in the United States?
Well, I don't know. We like to believe that they were, but
No
they're definitely
way,
not,
Jose.
they're definitely not right now.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I think I'm not surprised by this nonsense. That's not something that should require, like, breaking down your door and searching your entire house. Kind of same thing with, like, Trump Mar-a-Lago thing, regardless of what you think of Trump. I mean, did they need to go through, like, his wife's underwear drawer? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Like for classified documents, like, we really think that's where classified documents were. Anyways, Jesse is also not immune to criticism. He's a fairly eccentric dude. Obviously, Kraken is a wildly successful company. They've had their.
He's in the news a lot for saying weird stuff.
Yeah, he's pretty eccentric. I believe he stepped down as CEO because he got caught up in a whole bunch of negative news. Yeah. And so anyways, this is, like, kind of ridiculous. We're probably going to see more of this in the next little bit. I think we're going to see it regardless of regulation, because there's got to be a way still for, people to try to manipulate things behind the scenes. And it's probably going to be through selective enforcement of some sort. We'll see.
Or insider trading via Twitter.
Yeah, or Musk.
I know you love Musk. He made an announcement. Everyone knows what that announcement is. So he's released XAI, which is supposed to basically compete with ChatGPT or whatever OpenAI does next. That's great. I love seeing that in the marketplace. But people, for some reason, they're going bullish on, like, tokens.
AI in general.
Yeah. No, like, there's a bunch of AI crypto tokens that are. Yeah.
I know. The funny thing about this is ChatGPT yesterday, it was announced that there's a district attorney somewhere, or someone, DOJ, or someone's investigating them now for apparently exposing user data to some crazy amount of potential malicious intent, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really understand specifically what it was, but it's a fairly legitimate concern, I think, for OpenAI. And Musk has been fairly vocal, because OpenAI became, in fact, closed AI. When Musk originally funded it, he seed funded it with a few others. The goal was to keep it all open source so that AI was democratized. And that was how we were going to avoid the potential concerns of AGI and what that could mean actually for humanity. And Musk has been a fairly vocal, he's been ringing the alarm bells for a while that, AI is probably the largest risk that we have for humanity at the moment. We just don't realize it, because at first all the benefits are like, holy shit, this is freaking amazing. So everybody jumps on board and starts using it. But the more that people use it, the faster these models evolve, right? Because they learn from everybody that's using them. Anyways, I think I'm bullish on this. I think it's great that Elon, I'm a big Elon fan, as we all know. So I think it's great when Elon comes into any space, because I think he's just, one of those once in a generation entrepreneurs that he just knows how to make things happen, and he's got the resources to do it and is willing to take incredible risk, right? He put $44 billion into Twitter, and now they're poised this week to have the greatest amount of users per second ever. So for all the haters that were saying, oh, Twitter's going to die under Musk and so on and so forth, it's more popular than ever. So,
I'm not a big Musk fan, but I am a fan of people doing things. And that sounds weird, but like, if you're sitting on the sidelines saying that's not going to work, you didn't do it, you didn't try it.
At least you're doing something about it. I might not like what you're doing, but at least you're trying to do something.
Yeah. So, okay, here's what I have to say that I just kind of need to wrap this up with. The reason I wanted to go through tabloids today is because they haunt us, right? We have all of these individuals. We have Jesse Powell, we have Mashinsky, we have SBF, and they're all in some way or other relatable. And we're creating this negative sentiment around these individuals. And these negative individuals are the ones becoming our household name. I mean, Elon Musk is like a little bit controversial and he's not crypto only. But when we think about these crypto only people who've gotten famous, like CZ doesn't have a good reputation. Jesse Powell doesn't have a good reputation. Even the Winklevoss twins, like pretty positive, but also like a lot of weird negative spins that go on. And a lot of that's clickbait, a lot of it's tabloidy. But how can we expect people to adopt blockchain finance when all of the individuals that they see
are these guys
suck?
Part of that is a characteristic, I think, of the type of people that are early in an industry. You have to be kind of eccentric. You have to be like on one polar end of the risk spectrum to invest heavily and build heavily in a space that no one even believes is going to succeed. Yeah. And most of these guys started very, very, very early. And so, if you look at just their personality type, the personality types of people that do that stuff, it's not surprising that here we are. Generally, it doesn't get this out of hand. And the reason it is because regulation comes in somewhere and there's a requirement for a minimum acceptable standard. I've been banging on this drum for like 2 years saying we need a minimum acceptable standard of transparency and accountability in the space. Currently, we don't have it. Regulation will bring that, whether we like it or not. It's going to force some compliance. There's going to be a lot of bad stuff associated with regulation from a proprietor's perspective. But I think all in all, it's going to increase the minimum acceptable standard of activities and corporate governance and how things actually run. And so to this, I say F you, SEC.
But we don't have a positive spokesperson. Like, okay, think about Steve Jobs. Think about Steve Jobs. And even though he was specifically working, for Apple, on Apple, et cetera, he seemed legitimate. People trusted him. He was seen as an innovator. He was polite, et cetera, et cetera. He actually helped with the adoption of many different smart technologies, not just smartphones for Apple, because as Apple grew in market share, so did the rest of them. So if we had someone like the Winklevoss twins, or if, maybe you talk about Arrington quite a lot, somebody like that who was more in the public facing sphere, we could see a greater adoption from the average person. Or even if you think about, I don't know, Oprah had like a book club and helped with, popularize Weight Watchers and those kinds of things, because she was already this like trusted person who's seen as doing good. But we don't have anybody in our news cycles who's seen as doing good. Like even Musk, even if you love the open AI component, he's not seen as being like a positive player in the world, right?
A lot of that is, I think, has to do with political stripes in the U.S. Musk has always been a liberal, but since he supports free speech, he's never voted Republican ever.
Right.
So everybody's like claiming that he's this far right extremist, but like he's not. Like his focus is on climate change and getting to Mars. That's like pretty liberal. But free speech is a critical piece.
Getting to Mars is pretty right wing these days.
Well, only because of Musk. But anyways, so there's some other like characters that I think are maybe bringing some positive light. The CEO, the female CEO, I can't remember her name, of Franklin Templeton, is a big steward of the space. One of the ex-executives of PayPal is building an incredible payments infrastructure on the Lightning Network. We're seeing Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock, who can be a polarizing figure in a lot of ways, especially for me. I'm not a definitely not his biggest fan. But again, it brings a little bit more mainstream legitimacy, I think. I'm not sure Larry Fink is a hero to anybody, but he is somewhat of a trusted public figure.
But you kind of stated already is like, oh, this person's doing something good, but they're not a household name, and this person's doing something good, but I can't quite remember who they are, and I couldn't tell you exactly what they're doing. Whereas with these negative players, we know in depth like who SBF is going to invite to his house, right? And so I want to know who's doing good in our space, and I want to highlight them and get them some press coverage.
Okay, well, that's why you have me on the show every day.
Yeah.
Okay. We are overtime. So
fine.
Live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, all the different venues. Watch us on Spotify.
Twitter Spaces, apparently.
On Spotify. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Twitter Spaces lately. We keep getting rugged, which is obnoxiously annoying. Anyways, touch grass this weekend. Have some fun. We got you covered. Monday, we've got the weekend roundup. We are here all the time to help you enjoy your personal life. That's our goal. With that, I say to you, Ceara, go FUD yourself.
Go FUD yourself.